Why your first $50 an hour changes everything. Most people think $50 an hour changes your life because it means you make more money. That's true, but it's not the most important thing that changes. The bigger shift happens when your time finally becomes expensive enough that the way you think about work, spending, career decisions, and opportunity cost starts to change. At $20 an hour, losing a few hours of work can feel like an inconvenience. At $50 an hour, those same hours represent real economic value. A job that pays $50 an hour doesn't automatically make you wealthy. After taxes, benefits, unpaid time, commuting, and periods without work, the effective number can be much lower. And $50 an hour in one city can provide a completely different lifestyle from $50 an hour somewhere with dramatically different housing costs. But as a career milestone, $50 an hour is important because it can be the first point where your income starts giving you meaningful options. Here is what actually changes when your earning power reaches that level and the honest version of what it requires. 1. $50 an hour changes what your time is worth. At $50 an hour, 40 hours of paid work represents $2,000 in gross weekly earnings before taxes and other deductions. That doesn't mean you personally take home $2,000. It means your labor has reached a price where an hour of your time carries enough economic value to affect everyday decisions. A $100 purchase is no longer just a $100 purchase. Conceptually, it's about 2 hours of gross earning power. A $500 expense represents roughly 10 hours of gross labor. That doesn't mean you should literally convert every purchase into hours worked. That's an exhausting way to live. The important change is that opportunity cost becomes easier to see. Your time is no longer invisible. The honest catch, $50 an hour as an employee isn't equivalent to billing clients at $50 an hour as a contractor. A contractor may have to cover taxes, insurance, equipment, unpaid administrative time, downtime, and benefits. The headline hourly rate can therefore be misleading if you don't calculate the actual effective rate. 2. The first $50 an hour can make your previous income feel very different. Going from $20 to $25 an hour matters. Going from $25 to $30 matters. But eventually, you reach a level where the difference becomes large enough to noticeably change the mathematics of your month. If you work 40 paid hours a week, moving from $25 to $50 an hour doubles your gross hourly income. That doesn't mean your lifestyle should double. That's actually where the opportunity is. If your expenses were built around the lower income, the difference between what you earn and what you need can become dramatically larger. That difference is where savings, investing, debt reduction, and financial flexibility come from. The honest catch? Income increases only create wealth if some portion of the increase survives after spending. Someone earning $50 an hour and spending as though they earn $50 an hour can remain financially fragile. The income creates potential. The savings rate determines what happens to that potential. 3. It creates the first real separation between income and lifestyle. At lower income levels, a raise can disappear almost immediately. You make more. You move somewhere slightly better. You eat out more. You upgrade the car. You subscribe to more services. You spend more casually because the extra money makes everything feel affordable. Then the next month arrives and the new income already has a new lifestyle attached to it. At $50 an hour, the gap between what you could spend and what you actually need to spend can become more meaningful. That's where restraint starts producing a visible result. If your lifestyle remains closer to your previous income while your earning power increases, the difference can accumulate quickly. The honest catch? This is easier said than done. Lifestyle inflation is not always wasteful spending. Higher income can legitimately mean better housing, healthier food, less commuting, childcare, insurance, or other improvements in quality of life. The goal isn't to stay miserable after earning more. It's to make sure every increase in lifestyle is intentional. 4. $50 an hour can make skill acquisition economically rational. This is one of the biggest changes. When your time is worth more, investing time into becoming better at something can have a larger payoff. Suppose learning a specialized skill takes 300 hours. At a low earning rate, the opportunity cost of those 300 hours may be significant relative to the future benefit. But if the skill can eventually move your earning power from $30 an hour toward $50 or $60, the economics can become much more attractive. This is why high-income careers often have a strange characteristic. The people making more money aren't necessarily working harder every hour. They may simply be operating in a market where each hour of their existing skill is worth more. The honest catch: not every course, certification, degree, or skill produces a higher income. People routinely spend thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours acquiring credentials that employers don't value enough to justify the cost. The important question isn't what skill sounds impressive, it's what skill does the market actually pay more for. 5. It changes which jobs are worth considering. At lower wages, job changes are often driven primarily by immediate income. If one job pays $3 more an hour, the decision can seem obvious. But once you're earning around $50 an hour, other variables become much more valuable. Remote work, shorter commutes, better benefits, more predictable schedules, more autonomy, opportunities for advancement, a path to ownership, a job that teaches a valuable skill. Once your baseline earning power is higher, you can afford to evaluate jobs using more than the headline salary. That's a major form of career leverage. The honest catch: higher income can also make people afraid to leave a bad job. The psychological cost of giving up a $50 an hour position can feel much larger than the cost of leaving a $20 an hour one. A high salary can therefore create golden handcuffs if the person doesn't continue building transferable skills and financial reserves. Asterisk 6. $50 an hour can make saving dramatically easier if lifestyle inflation doesn't absorb it. Imagine someone moving from $25 an hour to $50 an hour. Their gross earning potential has doubled. Their expenses don't necessarily need to double. That creates the possibility of a completely different savings rate. The person can increase retirement contributions, build an emergency fund, pay down expensive debt, invest, save for a home, build capital for a business. The key word is possibility. The extra income doesn't automatically become wealth. It becomes wealth only after it survives the spending decision. The honest catch: taxes also increase as income rises depending on where and how you're paid. So doubling gross income does not mean doubling take-home income. Anyone making career decisions based purely on gross salary can dramatically overestimate the lifestyle change. 7. Your first $50 an hour can change your relationship with debt. At lower income levels, debt can feel like a permanent feature of life. A car payment, credit card balances, student loans, personal loans, a medical bill. When income is barely covering the essentials, paying down debt can feel like trying to empty a bathtub with a cup. Higher earning power changes the rate at which you can attack the balance. A $1,000 extra payment means something different when you can generate substantially more income each month. The debt hasn't become smaller. Your ability to eliminate it has become larger. And that can create one of the most important financial transitions of all. From managing debt to having the capacity to remove it. The honest catch: higher income can also make debt easier to justify. Banks may approve larger loans, cars become more expensive, housing options expand, credit limits increase. If every income increase is immediately converted into larger liabilities, the advantage of the higher wage can disappear. 8. It can turn career advancement from survival into strategy. When you're barely covering expenses, career decisions tend to be short-term. What's hearing? Who pays more? Can I get overtime? Can I find something closer to home? Those questions are reasonable. But once your income reaches a level where your basic needs are more manageable, you can start asking longer-term questions. What skill should I build next? What industry has higher ceilings? Can I move into management? Can I specialize? Can I start consulting? Can I eventually own something instead of only selling my labor? That is a different career mindset. You're no longer asking only how to earn more next month. You're asking how to increase the economic value of your time over the next 5 or 10 years. The honest catch: strategic career planning requires accepting short-term uncertainty. Sometimes the move that creates the highest long-term earning potential pays less initially. Having some savings is what makes that transition possible. 9. $50 an hour makes ownership more attractive. This doesn't mean everyone should start a business. It means the economics of ownership become easier to understand. If your labor already produces $50 an hour in the market, you have evidence that a valuable skill exists. The next question becomes whether you can capture more of the value. An employee might earn $50 for an hour of specialized work. An independent operator might charge $100 or $150 for that same hour because the customer is paying for the service, not the employee's wage. A business owner may eventually build a system where other people perform the work while the owner captures part of the remaining margin. That's where income can potentially stop being perfectly tied to personal hours. The honest catch: charging $100 an hour does not mean earning $100 an hour. Business owners have marketing costs, software, insurance, taxes, downtime, refunds, administration, employees, and unpaid hours. Revenue is not income, and revenue per hour is not personal wealth. 10. It creates a new definition of what a good job means. At lower income levels, a job that pays more is usually better. At $50 an hour, the question becomes more complicated. A $55 an hour job with terrible hours, no flexibility, a long commute, and no advancement may be worse than a $48 an hour job that provides autonomy, strong benefits, and a clear path to $70. This is where income becomes a platform rather than the final objective. The goal isn't simply to maximize the hourly number. It's to maximize the combination of income, stability, flexibility, future earning power, and ownership. The honest catch: there is no universal best combination. Someone with children may value schedule flexibility differently from someone trying to maximize income aggressively. Someone building a business may accept instability that someone supporting a family reasonably would not. What $50 an hour actually has in common with higher income levels? The important lesson isn't that $50 is a magical threshold. It isn't. $40 an hour can change someone's life. $60 can change someone else's. And $100 an hour in one profession may provide less financial freedom than $50 an hour in another, depending on taxes, expenses, benefits, stability, and location. The important threshold is the point where your earning power becomes large enough to create a meaningful gap between what you can earn and what you need to spend. That gap is the engine. Income creates the fuel. Savings captures it. Investing compounds it. Ownership can multiply it. And lifestyle inflation can destroy it. That's why the first $50 an hour matters. It can be the first time the gap becomes large enough to build something substantial. What actually separates people who reach $50 an hour from people who stay stuck below it? Across many different careers, the pattern is surprisingly similar. They become unusually good at something the market values. They specialize rather than remaining interchangeable. They deliberately pursue industries with higher compensation ceilings. They negotiate instead of automatically accepting the first offer. They change employers or clients when the market value of their skills rises faster than their compensation. They build credentials when those credentials have actual market value. And they spend enough time in one area to become genuinely difficult to replace. The people who remain stuck often do the opposite. They become broadly competent but rarely exceptional at anything. They stay in the same role for years while their responsibilities increase faster than their compensation. They wait for their employer to notice their value. They collect credentials without verifying whether the market rewards them. And they confuse being busy with becoming more valuable. The difference usually isn't raw intelligence. It's whether someone deliberately increases the economic value of their hour. The biggest mistake is thinking $50 an hour means you have made it. You haven't. At 40 hours a week, $50 an hour represents substantial gross earning power. But gross income is not wealth. Taxes take a portion. Housing takes a portion. Food takes a portion. Transportation takes a portion. Healthcare takes a portion. Lifestyle takes whatever you're willing to give it. And if all of the income disappears every month, the higher hourly rate has not created financial independence. It has simply created a more expensive version of the same financial cycle. The real advantage begins when the higher income creates a persistent surplus. That's when something interesting happens. The first $50 an hour becomes the foundation for the next $60. Then $75. Then perhaps $100. Or it becomes the income that allows you to invest consistently. Or pay off debt. Or buy equipment. Or start a company. Or build enough savings that you can walk away from a bad job. The number itself isn't the destination. It's the leverage created by the number. And that's why your first $50 an hour changes everything. Not because $50 is some magical wage. Not because everyone earning $50 an hour is financially successful. And not because earning more automatically makes life better. It changes things because your time has crossed a point where improving your earning power can have a visible effect on almost every other part of your financial life. Your savings rate can change. Your career options can change. Your ability to invest can change. Your ability to eliminate debt can change. Your ability to take calculated risks can change. And eventually, your relationship with work can change. You stop asking only, how can I make more money? And start asking, what is my hour actually worth? How do I make it worth more? And what do I do with the difference once I get there? That's the real milestone. The first $50 an hour isn't the moment you become rich. It's the moment your time becomes valuable enough that you can start deliberately converting it into something that doesn't depend entirely on selling the next hour. This is general information about career and income strategy, not personalized financial or career advice. Actual take-home pay varies based on taxes, benefits, location, employment structure, and hours worked. Higher income also doesn't guarantee greater financial security if expenses rise at the same rate. Somewhere right now, someone is waiting for a better job to change their financial situation. But the better question isn't simply, where can I make more money? It's, what skill can I become so good at that the market has to pay me more for my time? Because once your first hour becomes worth $50, you've changed more than your paycheck. You've changed the economics of your entire life.